imagine what would be the innovation that I could talk of. I'm very loud. As a rule, I'm so loud that I don't need mics. You know, I work in the space of livelihood. Poverty and aspiration very, very rampant in this country. It depends on the ovarian lottery. I think the morning with Professor Mashelkar talking about his journey was just a reflection of where we are. You know, which is your ovarian lottery? How do you take it? For a majority, poverty and aspiration, they go hand in hand. Which means that they do not want to work in skilled labor. And therefore, you have a huge supply and demand gap on both sides which are there. I just want to give a couple of statistics. I obviously am too old to read this at that distance, so I'll look back. 53 out of every 100 who enjoy schools drop out by 10th standard. 85 out of every 100 drop out by the time they reach second year college. I'm not talking of completion of graduation. This is the labor which is in the informal sector, which means we have, census, NSS, etc. It would be anywhere between 83 to 93%, which is in the informal sector. This group do not have any training. The country has capacity to train 20 lakh people in industrial training institutes, what we call ITIs. Highly ineffective infrastructure capex has been put in some not so much, but essentially not producing the skilled labor force that is there. And I think the ITIs are vilified. A lot of it is also because there's no aspiration. I, for instance, have a 20-year-old daughter and I cannot imagine myself putting her in an ITI. I mean, I would pay the money if she doesn't study well and put her in a college, which I've done, but not put her in an ITI. I mean, so there is there is the stigma attached with it. So I think these are the facts of life which we have to deal with, and this is what we're trying to do. So what we're trying to do is, we believe that there is an answer. We have to take training to people. When I started my career, adult literacy was a program which was very common. We went house to house, village to teach. And today I think after a long time I'm listening to a lot of people, and it's energizing to see how many people are doing that. I think you have to take vocational training to people. I think it's time we stop saying, please come to classroom. If we do not have dignity for it, people will not come to classroom. Let's take vocational training to people. What Lebanon's been successful, and here I would score myself at 60%, is that we've been able to take it in manufacturing and construction sectors, where we just go to the doorstep and deliver training, because these are contract workers. They don't belong to anybody. Let me ask you a question. If this building is built, how many of you would have employed a bar vendor or a shuttering carpenter? Please pick up your hands. Many of you are industrialists, many of you are policy makers, you would have given contracts. So if we don't employ them, do not expect them to come and say that I will get a placement letter. A lot of the CSR funds, a lot of the government money requires you to be in full-time jobs. 85% of the country is not in full-time jobs. So training for these 85% is not necessary for us according to our thought process itself. So we want construction training, but where will you deliver it? We want people to come to classrooms, but who will come to classrooms? I think this is the dichotomy with which we are doing. Okay, here I'm blowing my trumpet, so I'm not going to really go through it. But essentially, we scaled fast in the last few years, and I guess Shekhar invited because it seems good. But as I was just discussing at lunch, we've seen significant cracks when we scaled. And we consciously scaled because I do believe that running it small, we will do well. Running it at scale, running it efficiently and cost effective is when we will have. So we have significant problems which are there today, which I don't have the time to discuss. But my ask today is for a group of you who obviously have achieved it, to help us through our thought process, enable us to really look at scale. This, I've spent time on it, so I won't really spend a lot of time on it. But I think we should be conscious. Higher education is higher income, higher productivity, and by this I mean when it is quality education. For the poor, unfortunately or fortunately, we believe that it's a self-prophesizing cycle. They would join workforce by the time they're 16, not good at studies. Those who are good at studies will move forward. Those who haven't will fall by the way. And their life cycle, I often think, is like a film actor. Short, earn. So construction workers earn well, rubber workers earn well. Let's not assume they're not earning well. They'll earn 15 to 20,000, and everybody thinks, why are they, what's wrong if they're earning so much? But their lifespan, it's not regular work while they're earning. Second thing is, it's not long term. How many 50-year-old workers do you see? You don't. Then there's a reason for it. That means your lifetime when you can earn is low. Whereas it's the reverse, For our children, we'd probably have a longer period of time when you would support them. I mean, I still get support from my parents to take care of my kids. Can you imagine the support if I have to learn, whatever, there are times when you can do. Because that continuous education plus support is missing for the poor. So we've also tried to look at a lot of low-cost training aids. This country, I'm sorry to say, has completely forgotten vocational education. It believes that a welder can train a welder, a mason can train a mason, a beautician will train a beautician. But what are the training aids? At best, we want to bring costs down. We think digitized training aids would do. But just for a minute, think, how many of us learned cooking looking at MasterChef? Not many. Because it requires tools. Dexterity, precision, speed. These are the three things which most vocational trades require. Some of them where it is which has been customized, like for instance IT has been dumbified in that sense, requires communication, requires English. Again, there is a certain pattern to it. I think we need to understand pattern and teach. We've not done much on that. In our own small way, we've attempted to do it, and those models, I couldn't bring them, but they're suitcase type models. But I think there is somebody who has to take up production for them. For us, are we the people to do it? Because we've had to do it, we've done it. So I just want to say that these are the kind of people you have to train. How do you train? We have to figure out. Some will be poor. The previous that we saw, what genuinely they look, the look of poverty is something that appeals to us. Some can fall into poverty very easily. So there may be industrial workers' wives can fall in a minute into poverty the moment husband is not there. There again, there is significant skill augmentation with needs for gender care which is required. I'm not talking of rights, I'm not talking of anything. I'm talking of simple, what is your secondary income that you can earn? You may not want to earn a full income. What are those models, also economic models we need to come up with? To me, scale and sustainability go hand in hand, and I'll sort of complete there. I mean, as I see, there's a list that I've said, successes and failures as I put it. Our vision is to enable 20 million livelihoods by 2022, and this is what we want to do. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.